Good morning, everyone. This is Financial Literacy 101. And today we'll be talking about coding languages. Now, coding languages, I'm no IT guy, but I want to tell you the importance of having yourself and especially your kids to start learning coding languages is very, very important for your future and for their financial future in order for them not to only stand, but start to learn how to code. Now, my son this past summer was in a coding class for about 2 or 3 months, and we're going to plan on him doing it every year. We want him to be more so consistent, but there's some other things that we want him to do with as well. But coding is very, very important because, quite frankly, in the next 10 years, 5 million jobs will be wiped away. Now, so let's get into the coding language because we understand that coding can be very, very challenging. Whether you're learning to code through self-study, a coding boot camp, or college courses, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Now, for this reason, many programmers benefit from starting out with one of the easiest programming languages possible. Learning about more than 17 programming languages, there's so many for you guys to learn from. Now, I just want to take a book out of the East Indian Playbook. The East Indian Playbook, that they actually cultivate, train, and mentor their kids at a very, very young age to code. That way they're coming over to America, and I'm not going to tell you that they're taking jobs. They are taking jobs because they are qualified and they know the coding languages, okay? And I've said this before, and I'm not afraid to say it. We have to teach our kids HTML. Now, out of the 17 I'm going to give you here, they need to learn at least one to be profitable in the future. And I don't care what position, I don't care what role that they have to know how to learn one of these coding languages. They expect to make over 6 figures. Okay, because pretty soon they're wiping away a lot of the jobs, manufacturing jobs, customer service jobs, answering the phone jobs. Now, although HTML isn't technically a programming language, but learning how to create an HTML page is often a first step in learning how to program. Very, very important. I remember that I used to start learning how to make databases through Microsoft Access. So I do know a little bit of, building and creating things from scratch. I remember when I was 14 years old and I was on my first computer and you had to execute everything by command prompt. You had to put in CD:_CDVEC execute, things of that nature. See, you might recognize HTML as part of a link to a website on your browser, but it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And this was originally designed to help people format their text documents so they can present them to readers in a cleaner way. It's kind of like when Windows first came out, and either they stole it or they made it. Who really cares? When they made GUI, GUI, graphic unit interface, user interface. So I'm going to go through quite a few here. So I'm not going to give you detailed breakdown on each one, but I'm going to give you enough information in order for you to start learning something yourself, taking a quick class or course. And again, I'm not telling you that you essentially need to know how to write code, but I'm telling you as a parent, I'm telling you as an adult that you might need to understand it if you're trying to get a job. Because if you're not 5 or 10 years out from retirement, then you're in for a rude awakening. A lot of these jobs are going away. They're talking about 5 million jobs. Not like 5 million jobs as a plumber or 5 million jobs as an electrician. No, what they're saying is 5 million job titles will be wiped away. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs of people not having a career, not having a job to feed their families and even to feed themselves. So you must learn a coding language. You must understand it. What about CSS? Because we understand that CSS allows you to challenge the appearance of your HTML in browsers. See, these things are building on themselves. Technology is building on itself like the building blocks of life, like the building blocks of success. You need to understand this. And CSS means cascading style sheets. Now, these are most commonly used to define how a web page should look when you view by a browser. Now, for an example, you can set the text color or background color of certain elements with CSS. Now, a very, very small form of this is understanding layers. And I actually taught myself Photoshop. And believe me, When someone said they actually taught themselves something, it's not that easy as you may think. I didn't go on YouTube and Google. I press around on the button until I really figured it out. Good morning, Maddox 12. Let's move on. Number 3, and you heard of this one before, and it's not your regular day coffee. It's Javascript. Okay, Javascript, also known as JS. Now, this is commonly used in combination with HTML and CSS to implement client-side functionality through small scripts. This is why it's often referred to as a scripting language. You see how these things are being built upon themselves? How we're going to gradually go about this is being built and built and built. And Maddox, we're going to get on Python. We're going to get on Raspberry, maybe. We're going to get on these coding languages, fellas and ladies. We're going to get on it. So that was my number 3 with JavaScript. Guess what's number 4, Maddox? Number 4 is Python, because Python is highly readable, general purpose coding language. Now, Python is an easy, general purpose coding language designed with readability in mind. Think about it, readability in mind. So that means that you can go about the Python platform and while you're learning, and this is what my son was learning. He was learning Python because it was very easy. It's almost like playing a game, but you're coding programs. Now, as one of the easiest programming languages, it is often used as an introductory language for college students beginning their computer science study. No. The coding school that my son went to, he was the only black kid, and there were Indian kids and white kids. He was the only black kid. Why am I saying that? Because we as a melanated nation are not future-proofing our kids for success. I don't care if they hate it, and I don't care if they love it. They're going to do it. Just like you make them do everything else, you need to make them start to get into coding classes. And believe me, the coding class wasn't cheap, but there are a lot of free platforms out there that you can do a small Google search and come up with hundreds of free programs that are introductory to start learning platforms like Python. Because the typical uses of Python include implementing back-end functionality for websites through libraries like Django and analyzing data. Python can also be used as a scripting language as part of a larger program. Still, its popularity and longevity mean that Python has been used for just about everything. Python is now a building block of coding languages. Here's an unpopular one that you may not be familiar with if you're not in coding or IT, Ruby. Now, one reason Ruby is an easy programming language as it's supportive and friendly community. Now, as you notice, I keep saying the word easy. It's kind of like anything else. When you first started cooking, it took you a couple of times and you start understanding the premise, you start understanding what you needed to do to learn how to cook, how food looks. Same way with coding. When you start learning a sport, it don't matter what the sport was, swimming, ice hockey, football, basketball, normal sport. You know what I'm talking about, track and field. You kept practicing, you kept training, and you became better. The same thing with a lot of these coding languages that I'm giving you. Very easy. Listen up. Now, Ruby is a programming language with a focus on simplicity, make things very simple, and productivity. Now, Ruby falls on Rails, a framework makes it easy to use Ruby to create and provide web applications to users. What am I keep saying? A lot of these is built off of what? The very first one I spoke of, HTML, then CSS, then JavaScript, then Python, and now Ruby. Listen to what I'm saying. They are building blocks. And then the other one that a lot of you seen, but probably not understand, is Java, with the little cup like it's hot coffee, because there are tons of online resources to learn Java, one of the easiest coding languages. If you notice, I keep saying easiest, and there's tons of resources online that are free, And I'm saying in your spare time, this weekend, just look up a free coding course like I did and started to walk through it. And at first it's going to be another language because it's a coding language. It's another language like sign language. It's like speaking Swahili. It's like speaking the Tut language, TUT language. It's another language. But after a while, it's gonna be less foreign to you, and you're gonna become more familiar with it, and you're going to start to learn it, because Java is many developers' first exposure to the principles of object-oriented design. You probably heard this before. Now, as one of the easiest coding languages to learn, it's commonly used to teach college students the basics of design patterns and software engineering. Java, you've seen it before, and JavaScript. Now, here's a very, very unpopular one that you probably seen, PHP. Now, PHP, again, is one of the easiest coding languages if you know HTML. You see how we're going full circle here? We're back to HTML. Now, PHP means Hypertext Preprocessor, and it's another general purpose programming language. Now, it's actually is largely to provide the back-end server functionality that is essential to many important, again, websites today. If you notice, I keep saying the word website, and I keep using one of the first programming languages that's not really a programming language, but it's almost considered in the space or script is HTML. Now, I'm going to just go a little bit on this one a little bit because I know a little bit more about it. Now, when I think about PHP, it makes it easier for developers to retrieve and store data in databases while also processing and replying to users' requests. You guys get what I'm getting at? You see how this is building upon each other? And I'm going to break this down even more because PHP is also considered one of the easiest programming languages due to how seamlessly its response can present it to a user browser through HTML. Now, let me also inform you how important PHP is. Now, some notable projects and services that uses PHP include Facebook, Tumblr, and WordPress. Now, if you guys are into creating your own websites, like me, I have my website is created with the backdrop of Wix, or you want to use GoDaddy, they have WordPress. Okay. Part of that is WordPress, maybe some C++, but we're getting into C++. Okay, we're getting into C++. But it's easy to see how PHP has remained influential even with the newer programming languages. Now, since I said it, let's talk about C and C++. Now, these are perfect languages for building high-performance systems like Windows. Believe it or not, if you go into your Windows application, you'll see some of the supporting building blocks of coding software that has C++ even in your Windows, because C and C++ are both important lower level programming languages that are especially useful in the context of creating systems that require a high level of performance. C++ can also be thought of as an extension to the C programming language, adding features like object-oriented programming. But I mean, when you talk about C and C++, there's a lot of similarities, especially for someone looking for an easy program language to learn. What about C hashtag? Anyone heard of that one? Because this is an especially important coding language for game development. So all you guys there on Twitch playing games and PC games, because now Call of Duty is cross-level platform. Yep, Call of Duty is cross-level platform. So if you have a PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and a PC, they all can be in the same room playing the same game at the same time based upon some of the information and technology and the coding of C hashtag, because C hashtag is a general purpose language developed by Microsoft. It's especially suited for building programs for window environments and creating web application in combination with the .NET framework. And you guys seen this before. Maddox said, not C hashtag. Yep, C hashtag. You know how to get down. What about R? Yep, the letter R. See, R is also a coding language that is primarily used for data science. Remember the other, I believe it was the cigar talk that I gave, and I talked about data science, data analyst, data engineering. All of these are essentially how you should be preparing yourself and your kids. See, for the people who are literally over the age of 35, you only have like maybe, a couple of years before your retirement. I know it's probably a couple of years, some are more 20 years, right? But you should at least understand some of these coding languages, okay? I know it's called C#, but for the people who don't understand that terminology, Maddox, I like to say C hashtag. That's why. But anyway, R is a programming language focused on data analysts and visualization. Now, this makes it it might be not be the best language to start with if you're looking to acquire skills and knowledge of the programs you experience as a programmer. It's not like one of the easiest. Like Python, R is commonly used to perform statistical analysis of data. This is what data analysts and data engineers use. It also, as well, build web applications or write scripts to accomplish various tasks. If you're just starting out with programming, becoming familiar with a general purpose language like Python instead of R may result in more tangible benefits in the long run, especially if you're considered becoming a data scientist, which you should be preparing your kids for. Data scientists, data analysts, data engineer, etc. What about Go? The goal with Go was explicit. Create one of the easiest programming language to learn. Now, Go is a general purpose programming language developed by Google around 2007 with syntax and uses cases similar to C and C++. Now, its goals were to simplify the syntax and general complexity of these and other languages to make it one of the easiest programming language to learn. I want you to ponder on that for a moment. Google, 2007. Google, 2007. That's when this program was out. Now, Go is often used to implement components of larger projects where execution speed is important. Now, I remember back in 2014, Dropbox used Go, that was backed by and created by Google. Dropbox used Go to improve the performance of its back-end systems, especially with regard to accessing their database. Yeah. What about Rust? What about Rust? Rust is a great coding language when it comes to security as a top priority because Rust is another general purpose programming language based on C and C++. Rust is built by Mozilla, the developers of the popular web browser. It's created by Mozilla, the developers of the popular web browser Firefox, which first appeared around 2010. That's essentially who created Rust. Okay? That's who created Rust, but it's also using and backed by the language of C and C++. See, what they do is, family, they use other coding language to support their coding language. Again, we're talking about if you were building a house brick by brick by brick, one brick goes on top of the other brick, and these are all building on top of each other to build more complex coding systems and coding languages. What about Swift? And no, I'm not talking about the trucking line. Swift is the preferred coding language for Apple operating systems. See, the problem is we far too long have been end users, meaning that whatever applications I see on my phone, I don't know or care about the technology that's supporting it behind it. But now that 5 million jobs in the next 10 years are going to be wiped away by the year 2030, you might want to understand and know some of these coding language so you can at least speak to it. Because you're going to go on a job interview and they're going to say, hey, do you know anything about Swift? Do you know anything about C++? Do you know anything about C#, C#? Do you know anything about HTML, JavaScript, or Java? Do you know anything about Python? And if you can speak to it more so than the next person, you'll get the job. Now, Apple developed Swift back in 2014, especially for use within its own technological ecosystem, because we know that Apple has this ecosystem of all their devices that talk to each other. Now, this includes Mac OS and iOS, the operating system for your devices like the MacBook and iPhones. I don't even need to go deeper in that. What about Erlang? Yeah, you can only use Erlang in functional programming because Erlang is a functional general purpose programming language, and it made its first appearance back in 1986. And is focused on concurrent programming. This means that its features and restrictions are ideal for building systems where multiple distinct processes need to run simultaneously while still communicating with each other. They still use Erlang in many of the software and coding programs today. All this technology doesn't come out of anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. I remember I was an intern working for the United States Department of Agriculture. And I was a computer software hardware guy, but it wasn't a hard task. I just literally changed out hard drives and fans and cooling systems of CPUs, your tower computers, your CPUs. And I sat right across from coders. From back then, they was most likely called software engineers, not data engineers. It was called software engineers. And the only language they speak in was Linux. They were just semicolon, hashtag, open parentheses, type of word, close parentheses. They would use all types of characters. Like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, we're programmers. Oh, what do programmers do? Oh, well, programmers create software that end users use. What's an end user? Well, you're an end user. I'm the front. You're the back end user. I'm the front end user because I'm the one creating the program. Oh, that's what got my wheels turning. Like, this is really important because everybody is using computers. Now, I don't know how to pronounce this one. I always mess this one up because I doubt if it's called Exler or Elexler, but I'm going to spell it out because I'm horrible with pronouncing things sometimes. Elixir. That's Elixir. Now, this is an extension of Erlang, but it adds in its own syntax and tooling that has been used to build scalable web services. Scalable web services, which primarily means it helps a lot of the websites you guys go to be updated and upgraded very, very easily. Because it's one of the most recognizable project with the extension of Erlang and uses I'm just going to call it E for short, E to support more than 5 million concurrent users while processing millions of events per second. I mean, take, for instance, Pinterest uses E to improve the performance of its API service. Okay. What about Scala? Now, Scala is commonly used for implementing back-end functionality. Yep. Now, Scala builds a foundation laid by who? Java. And if you're just coming in, please rewind this video because I'm giving you a lot of the coding languages that are very, very easy that but especially your children should start at least familiarizing and learning. Now, Scala builds on a foundation that's backed by Java, and it brings a focus on functional programming and concise, flexible syntax. And if you guys keep hearing me saying syntax, then guess what you should be looking up? Syntax. And syntax is spelled Syntax. Syntax. Now, Scala is commonly used to implement back-end functionality. Guess who uses Scala? Twitter first picked up the language for performance reasons in 2009. And if you notice, at one point, Twitter was going to go away, but when they picked up Scala, their programming, their website, everything got more efficient. It became a lot faster and better. And they picked it back up in 2009, and it's perhaps one of the largest Scala users, Twitter, okay? And people also use Scala for programming and problem solving. Now, last but not least, family, Clojure. Now, the way you spell this one, if you want to look this one up, because it doesn't spell the way it sounds, is Clojure, Clojure. Now, this one is notable for adding immutable data structures to Lisp, Lisp. Now, Clojure is a modern functional programming language from 2007 that's based on Lisp, Lisp. And this is a language that first appeared in, guess what? You know what? I just want to pop on my camera very quickly. Where's my camera at? This particular language was actually created back in 1958. I just had to look at you for a reason. This is how long it's been around. 1958. That is how long this has been. Just had to look at you. Sorry. That's how long Clojure has been around. It first appeared in 1958 with a unique parenthetical syntax. And so for you guys who are trying to really figure out what syntax is, because I know some people just listen to my voice, they're not going to really look it up as well. I'm going to define syntax, okay? And I'm going to give you the book definition. I'm telling you on this one, I will be giving you the book answer here. It says that syntax, the arrangement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language, a set of rules or analysis of the syntax of a language, the branch of logistics that deals with syntax, not logistics, linguistics. Sorry about that. That's syntax. That's syntax. It is basically the study of how words and phrases are built to create a language. And that's what a lot of these programming languages are based upon. Syntax. Okay? So when it comes to Clojure, Clojure add features like immutable data, and this feature makes it easier to write concurrent systems. Okay, now this data structure is one of that cannot be directly modified after it's created. That's one of the harder things about Clojure. Once it's essentially created, it cannot be directly modified. You might have to use another coding language to essentially do a backdrop into changing some of the context of this particular syntax language. Now, although it may sound restrictive, this guarantee means that information in a function or program working with under these structures won't change unexpectedly. Okay. Now, and again, Clojure for backend services to build systems that can easily handle large volumes of activity. Now, family, I gave you guys a lot of information here, and I hope you take it in kind. And from this list that I've given you, if you have children, no matter male or female, you should really be putting them in coding class, or at least doing the free programs they have on the web in order for them to at least start understanding some of these coding languages. Because when they get to be your age, this is going to be 50% of the job market. A lot of these jobs we have right now, I want you to ask yourself one question. Can machine learning, AI, and automation do this job? And I want you to do a Google search. I want you to do a deep dive. I want you to go on Google. I want you to go on the dark web. I want you to go on Firefox. I want you to go on Opera Mini. I want you to use every search engine that you can possibly use to understand, will your job be around in the next 10 years? Or can machine learning, artificial technology, and automation take it over? And if you are a customer service agent, or if you answer the phone, if you work in a warehouse, I can tell you very, very easily, jobs like that and many others that I have not named will be wiped away, because 5 million job titles will be essentially extinct in the next 10 years. You guys have a great and wonderful day. This is Financial Literacy 101. Learn money and be inspired. And most importantly, you better start understanding how coding works.